Hey guys, so I want to talk to you about something personal. We wanted to talk to you about something personal. Basically, when I was going through this part of this journey of my life, I kind of was seeking out advice. I was seeking out other people's experience to kind of see what I was going to get myself into. And it was the journey of me getting off birth control and why I got off birth control. Guys, if you're new to this channel, my name is Celia. Nice to meet you. Funny is, I actually recorded this video and I edited it and everything, and it just wouldn't post. And I think there is a reason why it wouldn't post, and it just wasn't meant for me to post it at that time because everything was so new. So I have an updated version. Just start from the background. Like, let me give you the background of my birth control experience. I've been on birth control for 10 years. I started birth control when I was in, I think it was like either 10th grade or 11th grade. I only took the pill throughout my entire birth control journey. I've never tried any other type of birth control before. My experience that I'm talking about is only based off of me taking the pill. Let's talk about the reason why I got on birth control. So, let's see. In high school, or not even just in high school, ever since I first got like my menstrual cycle and I started having those lady times of the month, they weren't the easiest for me. Some of the things that I was going through during my cycle were not normal, or like I should kind of just sit down for this. Basically, we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty here. My cycles were not normal. My cycles lasted like a week to maybe 2 weeks sometimes. I was losing a significant amount of blood, had severe cramps, like really severe cramps, to the point where I felt it in my legs. It was so painful, to the point where I had a bedridden phase whenever I was on my period, and I would wake up at like 12 p.m. It basically described the level of pain that I was going through. I just remember this one time in class. Cramps aren't all the time, they come in waves, and I just had this huge wave of cramps while I was in the middle of science class in high school. And she was trying to have people, bring up their tests after they were done. And I ended up having to, I couldn't walk to the front of the class to bring up my tests because I was in so much pain and I literally could not move. And my teacher, she came to me and she was basically like, hey, are you okay? And I told her what was going on. And, I appreciate her so much to this day because she went in her desk and she got me some pain relief medication and she gave it to me, and she took my test up to the front of the class for me, asked how I was doing, and was just giving me pointers on how to take care of myself in that department. I was going along with those type of symptoms for a while. It wasn't too much of an issue for me until one day at practice. It became pretty serious. Now, I was a dancer in high school. I loved to dance. I was dancing for the marching band, and for those of you guys who are familiar with what goes on in the marching band, you guys know that there's band camp, and during band camp you guys are going hard, doing very, very, very demanding workouts, lots of cardio, and it's summertime, it's very hot outside. And I just remember one time we were doing one of those training intervals outside, and I literally fainted. And that was the first time that I fainted. And it wasn't it was weird because it wasn't the blackout faint. I've never experienced fainting before, but if you fainted, fainting in the sun is different than fainting in the dark. Fainting in the dark, everything turns black. When you faint in the sun, you see the light gets bigger and everything is just white, and you just whiten out. And I think I was gone for maybe a minute. It wasn't really that, long, but everything, I just saw the light and the light just took over me. It's funny to talk about it now, but it's not really that funny. Thank God my dance coach was there because she caught me. And I went straight to the band room afterwards to kind of get myself together, and they didn't really know what's wrong with me until I went to the doctor. I went to the doctor and they ran a whole bunch of tests on me. They also checked my abdomen for fibroids, and I didn't have fibroids. They did an ultrasound. They thought that might have been the issue, but they weren't fibroids. So I did a series of blood tests, and I found out that I was extremely anemic, and I was losing too much blood. And I know that had to do with my cycle. It was they said it was most likely because of my cycle, because I was on it for 2 weeks, and it wasn't just I feel like this is so TMI, but it wasn't the little small, if you can gauge your flow based off of, I think, how many tablespoons or teaspoons of fluid that you lose a day. And I had a heavy flow for like maybe a week and a half out of those 2 weeks, and then everything was kind of like tapering off at the end. So I was losing a lot of blood, and I didn't really recognize the signs of anemia. I just thought that like I didn't know what was going on. I was falling asleep in class. My grades were slipping a little bit because I was falling asleep in class, and I had an addiction to ice. I just love the taste of ice, the crunch of it, just the flavor. And those are symptoms of anemia for people who don't know what they are. And that was just something that transpired because of how serious and how abnormal my period was. So fast forward, we're at the gynecologist. It's recommended that I go on birth control, and I chose to do the pill. She was explaining to me that, hey, if you do the pill, you got to make sure you take it on time every single day, which I didn't have an issue with for like the past 10 years. I think I've never missed it, but I was late, like probably I could count on one hand, not even the full hand, out of the whole 10 years. She was telling me, if you get on the birth control, your cramps are gonna go away. And she was telling me, it's a regular civilian. Yeah, she was telling me that my cramps would go away. She was saying that my flow is not going to be as heavy, and it's going to basically help address the issue of my anemia. And the type of birth control that she put me on was FE, Ministrin FE. That was the first one that I tried. And the way it works, she said, is basically I'm getting an iron dosage out of each pill to kind of combat the anemia that I'm dealing with. And she said that the brown pills that were in the pack, I didn't necessarily have to take it, but those were like the iron pills too. Those were those consisted of iron, so it was best that I took it. Sometimes I took it, sometimes I didn't, but it didn't really make a difference in like my cycle flow or anything like that when I had my cycle on the pill. Everything was like pretty smooth as far as the process. In the beginning, my cycles did become shorter. They were like 3 to 4 days, definitely less flow. Cramps did not go away all the way, but it diminished just a little bit. Everything seemed kind of normal. I really just liked taking the pill at first because it was better than what I was going through before. Instead of having a period for 2 weeks, I was having it for 3 days. Instead of having boo-goo cramps to the point where I couldn't move, I was having bearable but still painful cramps. Now, I was still anemic throughout this entire journey. I guess I just wasn't as anemic, but I still did have a huge anemia problem. But I didn't find that out until towards the end of my birth control journey, which is, I'm gonna get to that. Visits in between where I went for checkups, and she was like, oh, your anemia, your iron levels are doing good. And there are some visits that were not as good as the previous visits, but for the most part it was pretty stable and within a range of either being one step to healthy or in the healthy range. So it was pretty stable throughout the entire time until the end. So for people who aren't familiar with taking birth control and stuff like that, when you're taking birth control, to kind of get into the insurance and the coverage and the changing part, I wasn't taking the same exact birth control the entire time. There was a point of time where my insurance, it was the same, but it just didn't cover the original brand that I was taking. So I think I had to get like the generic brand. You know how you go to the store and you have your favorite brand, but then you get the great value because it's cheaper and it's like the same thing? It was basically one of those type of situations. It was supposed to have the same ingredients. It was just a different brand because my insurance didn't cover it. I switched to that brand and everything was, it was pretty normal. I switched into that brand like probably like 2 to 3 years into my birth control journey, and everything seemed pretty much the same except the fact that I was a little bit moody. So I started off with Ministrin FE 24, and then I started taking Blisovi 24. I personally didn't recognize too many changes, but people around me did. They said that, I was a little bit more moody. My personality, behavior would kind of change a little bit. So I guess that was a side effect. You don't really notice it when it's you, but other people noticed it. Fast forward until like year 9, year 10. Year 9, year 10, I kept on having to switch birth control packs that were similar as far as like the ingredient. I kept on having to switch birth control brands that the ingredients were like similar to the original one that I was taking, because some of them just started getting discontinued. So I took about like a total of maybe like 4 or 5 different birth controls. I don't remember the name of all of them, but they're supposed to have the same ingredients and basically have the same effects as far as maintaining my iron levels and regulate my period. Fast forward to year 9, year 10, that's when I started going through and feeling a lot more issues. So year 9, year 10, I started getting headaches, and I'm not talking like just like a little throb here, a little throb here. My head was like banging. It was banging, and I don't know, it would just happen randomly throughout the day. I would wake up in a good mood, and I don't know, I guess it would happen more towards the end of the day. I would get like a huge excruciating painful headache. But the only way for me to get rid of it, it didn't matter if I took pills or anything like that. I had to go to sleep. Like, I had to shut my eyes and put my body to complete rest mode in order to escape the headaches. Other than the headaches, I started having like a little bit of like heart palpitations. My heart would just be like, I don't know, it was hard to explain it, but there would be some times where I would get random chest pains and like my heart would like throb a little bit, but it didn't happen every month, but it happened enough for me to notice it. I became highly irritable and stressed out. When I'm telling you that like the smallest thing that should not stress me out was bringing me through the roof stressed out. My patients dealing with like everyday situations, everyday life, people encountering people and all types of like obstacles, like my willpower to get through it went from here to like down here, and I was just kind of like miserable and stressed and in pain. Sometimes I was still having the cramps. The cramps looked like they felt like they were getting a little worse, and then when I was going to the doctors, they were basically saying like, hey, like anemia levels were basically back to stage 1. I was tired all the time. I was starting to crave ice a little bit more, to the point where for my regular checkup exam, she checked my blood levels and she was just like, we need to get you in for another blood test in 3 months for your iron to make sure that they're in a better stable area, because they're really, really low. So it was like, I don't know if my body got used to the birth control or it just wasn't reacting to it the same, or if it was rejecting it, but I was starting to feel the symptoms and I just felt like really bad more days than not. It was affecting my social life, my personal life, my work life, everything, and I just made the decision to just get off of it. I got off birth control July of 2023. I'm really gonna just make a part 2 for what happened after I got off birth control, because that's a whole ordeal itself. A lot of things changed about me, and I found out about a lot of things that like, and honestly, I'm kind of glad that that first video didn't really post, because there were a lot of things that happened that were more prominent and eye-opening towards recently versus when I first got off of birth control. But yeah, I just ended up making the ultimate decision to get off birth control, to sum it up, because it wasn't really fulfilling its part of helping with the anemia. My periods were still shorter, but as far as the other side effects, I don't think it was worth actually staying on the pill. Like, I just wasn't happy, and I just felt like my quality of life was just, it was like diminishing day by day, pill by pill. Another thing that I was scared about, during the pandemic, I had COVID. I had like COVID like probably, I think it was like 2 to 3 times, at least 2 times. And one thing that I noticed through this whole COVID situation, this whole COVID area, is that blood clots are more prominent than not in society because of COVID, whether you took the vaccine or whether you just had COVID, period. So if you really read the fine print for the birth control. A lot of the issues that they say arise and stuff like that with birth control, as far as side effects, they kind of pop up when you hit the age of like 30, and I'm 27, so I was approaching the age of 30 and I was starting to feel some of those symptoms. And I was also scared because, you know, COVID already increasing the chance of blood clots, and taking the pill, you know, there's a side effect of you getting blood clots. I just felt like, you know, it was increasing the chances of me getting blood clots. And there were situations that I was seeing on YouTube that was kind of scaring me, of people saying, oh, they say that this is like a side effect, this is a symptom, and it rarely happens and stuff like that. But, you know, I think the older you get, it rarely happens. I think it's more the higher chance for it to happen as you're getting older, because that's the reason why they specifically put that age range. And a lot of the ladies that I was looking at their videos, they were in that age range of like late 20s to 30s, where they were getting all these issues and just decided to get off of it. And I don't want anything detrimental to happen to where I can't recover from it. So I was just like, let me just get off of this right now, because I'm already going through X, Y, and Z, and I'm just not here for what else is here to come. And it just didn't really sit right with me, the fact that the pills that I was taking were getting discontinued, and I'm reading articles about birth control not being effective for certain areas for that people want it for. I'm reading things about how birth control affects your stress and how you respond to it. I'm also reading things about how birth control can mask and hide some underlying conditions that you're going through. And I was just like, you know what? I think it's time to enter that new phase of my life and kind of cleanse out and be more in tune with my lady parts and go the natural way. But hopefully this video was insightful to anybody who's looking to get off their birth control. For people who were on birth control, especially for a long time, please comment down below if you've gotten off of it, why you got off of it. I hope this video helps anybody who's looking to get off birth control. I will be posting a part 2 as far as what I experienced after I got off birth control, because that's a whole ordeal. The changes that happened in my life, the changes that happened physically, emotionally, health-wise, a lot of changes, just hygiene, just a lot of things changed after I got off the pill. And I want to go in detail about that, and I don't want this video to be too long, so I will be splitting this up into part 1, and the other one will be part 2. So stay tuned for part 2. I hope you guys are having a really great year, and I'll see you guys next time.